Hello friends and welcome to Figure Study, where today we're taking a look at something I honestly didn't think I was going to be able to take a look at. That is Mastermind Creations' reformatted TFCon 2020 exclusive Vexo Prominon. This is the TFCon exclusive from Mastermind Creation, well, one of the TFCon exclusives from Mastermind Creations for 2020, and you might recognize this mold. So this is a repaint with a very, very slight remolding, specifically with the head of Ultio, which is their version of Ratbat, and you can check that out up there if you haven't yet. That is also a cool figure. And this, with a few exceptions, is pretty much just Ratbat again, with obviously a different color scheme, and there will be a different head, which we'll see in robot mode. So I'm probably not going to spend as much time on this as I did on Ratbat. To start, here we've got the vehicle mode, and this looks like a very Cybertronian flying wing type thing, and it definitely has kind of like a, let's say, Dark Knight flair to it, mostly because of the colors, but also that shape. It is kind of in that vein where you've got these sort of sickle-like bits coming down along the edges of the wings, and as with Ratbat, you can, or Ultio rather, you can extend the wings out and give it more of a wide-winged thing, but I think it looks better when you tuck it in like this. Unfortunately, this likes to get loose. I tightened this screw before starting the video, and just the act of straightening this out and then pushing it back in again, this is now loose. And that's irritating. I might just have to floor polish the screw or something, I don't know. But it's still a cool looking vehicle. And I saw on Pia's video, if I fold these skids, I'm just folding the skids down so that they're out of the way, but I liked one of the things he did where he folded these bits down so that they're at kind of like an angle, and that does look pretty cool. Unfortunately, because of mine, this is, again, because I need to adjust that likes to flop down a bit, but I think it's cool. It cuts a nice profile. And there's really not a whole lot else I can say about this vehicle mode. The colors, it's primarily black, but there are some areas in just a few spots, like here, up here, where you've got either gray or I can't quite decide if this is supposed to be silver or more of a gunmetal color, because it's either a really dark silver or a really light gunmetal. But whatever it is, it's some kind of metallic color. So primarily the colors of this thing are black, gray, and some kind of metallic. Though the window here is very blue. It's kind of hard to tell with all the black around it, but it's like a, not quite a sky blue, definitely not a dark blue, but it is blue. And I think that works okay, though for reasons. I feel like this would look a little bit better if it was maybe like a brighter color, like a yellow or something like that. But yeah, I do really like the look of this vehicle mode. I said it in Ultio's video as well, but I'm really impressed how they managed to take basically the same mold that they used for their drift and deadlock and all of those, and turn it into something that looks so drastically different despite having more or less the same transformation scheme. There are definitely some differences, which we will see during the transformation. They get a lot of mileage out of this mold. I gotta say, I absolutely am impressed with Mastermind Creations' ability to take molds and repaint them and remold them slightly to make drastically different looking figures. But I do really like the contours of this vehicle. Not just the wing shape, but you've got these little fins that stick out in a few places, and these bits back here. It makes it feel like this thing probably goes really fast. Which is silly, because having spikes sticking out of the back of a thing doesn't actually make it aerodynamic or anything, it gives it that impression. Anyway, let's just truck right along here, because as I said, there's not a whole lot for me to say about this figure that I haven't already said about Ratbat or Ultio, so we're just gonna skip straight to the size comparisons. Here is Vexo Prominon with the standard deluxe squad, and you can see even from this angle that if you just, even ignoring the wings here, this vehicle is still substantially larger than a standard deluxe. Here he is with Ultio, and looking at the two of these together, it's pretty clear. Let me raise this up a bit. I feel like it's pretty clear just how much this is just this with a different color scheme. Not just different colors, but like where the color is placed is different. But yeah, it's clearly it's clearly the same mold. Here he is with Aether Beta, Mastermind Creations' version of Deadlock, and again, it's pretty much the same skeleton. Not the same mold, obviously, but if you ignore the wings, you can definitely see that similarity. For the sake of curiosity, here he is with a Masterpiece Carbot, in this case G2 Sideswipe, both with and without all of his accessories stuck on his roof. And finally, here he is with the Duck Tank. Okay, so, again, if you are familiar with Ultio or any of the Aether Beta or Alpha, whatever versions of this mold, then you are familiar with this transformation. But we're still going to go through it because that's kind of the point of this whole thing, isn't it? Alright, so let's transform this thing. And here we have crime-fighting vigilante billionaire playboy Vexo Prominon in his robot mode. And yeah, it's Batman. It's just Batman. No getting around it. This is freaking Batman. And it's so ridiculously dumb, but in like that absolutely amazing way. This thing is utterly ridiculous. But it works so well. I remember when Ultio first came out, everyone was saying like, oh, if you just painted that black, it would look great as a Batman figure. And I guess Mastermind Creations was paying attention, because yeah, absolutely. The head is new, and we'll look at that more in a minute, but everything else on this, the molding, is exactly the same as Ultio, or Rat Bat. So the only difference body-wise is the paint scheme. And this actually is kind of incredible as Batman, I gotta say. The colors here are so great too, because this is something that wasn't really properly conveyed in the promo shots that we saw initially when Mastermind Creations revealed this exclusive. The promo shots made it look like it was mostly a black figure. And that's pretty much true for the vehicle mode. There are, like I said, some spots that were gray, some spots that had that metallic color on them, but it looked primarily black. The actual robot mode, though, like in hand and not in the promo shots, they did such a great job with the colors here. Like, yes, there's still a lot of black on this thing, like in the arms and shoulders and legs and waist and whatnot, but there's also a lot of gray. And that gray does a fantastic job of both getting across the obvious homage and also making certain details pop out, making certain molded details stand out a little bit better, and it breaks up the color scheme so nicely. And then for very obvious color stuff, you've got the yellow going across the midsection for the belt. Perhaps it holds different types of utilitarian objects. It's goofy, and I got it because, well, I wanted to get it because it was goofy, and I absolutely lucked out in getting this thing, because this thing sold out like super duper fast. I actually missed the window to buy this, and the only reason I have it was because I basically sat camped out on a web page and was like refreshing every so often, and I think what happened was either somebody canceled their order or somebody's order got canceled for one reason or another, and it popped up as available and I was able to buy that. Clearly I got it, but very difficult to track this thing down. I'll save all the final thought stuff for later and like the costs, whether it's worth it or not, but basically, yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to get this, and I kind of resigned myself to not getting it, and then I lucked out and got it. The point I'm trying to make is, when I saw the promo shots, I was like, that looks really goofy and silly, and I kind of love that idea, but like in hand, this is actually awesome. Like, yeah, there's the goofy Batman factor to it, but like realistically, the deco on this guy is fantastic. The blacks and the grays play off each other so nicely. And those little hits of metallic colors, like in the knees and in the shoulder pods up here and like down in the ankles, it just enhances everything so well. And because they went with like a matte black color, that matte finish allows some of those details in the black color, in like the black areas, to actually shine through a little bit better when the light hits it in certain ways. So like you can still see a fair amount of detail on this guy, and he just looks cool. Like the molding on this figure is fantastic. And it was like that with Ratbat/Ultio, and it's like that with their Drift/Deadlock. It's just, in this color scheme, in the black and gray and metallic color scheme, it looks so cool. Now, like I said, this is exactly the same figure as Ultio/Ratbat until you get to the head. So all the details are the same. You still have this unfortunate bit of kibble kind of folded around the outside of the legs, which it's unfortunate because it does cover up some nice detail here, and it does kind of weirdly change a little bit of the silhouette of the leg, but like I don't really notice that too much, so it's a nitpick more than anything. But then like in the legs here, like this is something that's actually really impressive. They actually painted that kind of silvery color in a couple of the spots on the thighs too. So it's like just a little bit of extra paint in here to enhance things. It's really nice. And again, there's the big splash of yellow across the midsection for the belt of utilities. Nothing painted on the arms themselves, which is fine. I think the color separation is great with like the gray and the black there. And again, you got those shoulder pods with the gray and metallic colors kind of mixed. And then in the torso here, this is also really cool what they did here, because it's molded, like they didn't change the molding at all, but what they ended up doing, in addition to painting in these vents, which just looks nice, is they painted this section going up the center and kind of forking off to either side this black color. And it is absolutely not a bat symbol, but it's reminiscent enough that when you take in that shape along with everything else going on with this figure, like with the colors and the yellow and the belt and the head, which again we'll see in more detail in a minute, it gets the homage across despite there not being any new molding from the neck down. It's really cleverly done. I'm just going to keep saying that. This was a brilliant redeco. And of course you can do the thing that you could do with Ultio, where you can fold these bits down to have them act as like, possibly like a cape, possibly like little side somethings dangling off his shoulders. If you want, you can also pull them back up so you can have him like swooping down or whatever. I prefer to have him hanging down, but I like that you have that adjustment option for like action poses and stuff like that. And along the back here, now this is how I guess they want you to transform it. They want you to like take this bit, fold this cockpit section up, and then fold this up along the back. I don't think it really matters. I am a little bit nervous about this because this, as you can see, is just a clear plastic hinge. And I've been careful with it, and it doesn't seem to be stressing or anything like that, but still, it makes me nervous. On the one hand, this does stick off the back, but at the same time, these shoulder pods stick out so far. This is actually still closer to the back than the shoulders are, so I feel like this doesn't really affect how deep the figure can sit in a shelf. So if that's a factor, you don't really need to worry about it. It also does kind of impede the waist swivel a little bit. So what I generally prefer to do with this guy and with Ultio is have this just kind of folded down like that. It's not a super great look, but it does get it out of the way of the waist swivel. And there's another thing we'll talk about later that kind of makes this hanging down not matter. Now that head, the coloring absolutely gives it that kind of like Batman cowl look with the black kind of coming up with like the ears. I mean, they've got the addition of this head crest here, but like this, the black bit absolutely gives the feeling of the Batman cowl, right down to the little mouth area being revealed. The colors in terms of like the eyes and stuff are wrong, kind of, because like actual Batman costumes, either in the comics or whatever, the eyes are usually either white or regular human eyes, and then the face is like, you know, fleshy human face. But he's a robot, so I feel like doing white for the mouth and then the sky blue, I guess, for the eyes actually works pretty well. The lighter color of the eyes shines through really well, and I feel like if they had done those in white, it wouldn't have worked as well because the face is already white, or mouth rather. And yellow probably would have popped really hard, but they already had yellow for the belt, so I can see why they did that, and I think it looks good. And also they did some metallic for that head crest thing. And then also I like how they painted this bit around the outside here gray, because for one, it makes that detail stand out a little bit and makes it feel kind of like some kind of robotic headset maybe that's wrapped around the head, but also it kind of further highlights that cowl shape that the head has. It's really, really clever, and I'm also really curious to see what they might do with this head sculpt down the line. And this guy can also do the same thing that Ratbat/Ultio could do, where you can pull these wing sections out. They just peg in right in here. You can pull these out, and he can wield them like swords. And that's pretty cool. It's not something that I would consider overtly Batman-like, but you can totally do that. And that is really awesome. And you can also do this thing where you can pull off these claw weapons here. That they're pegged in here, and they are a little tricky to remove. These you can peg into his hand, and they work as like claws. And just like with Ultio, I don't really care for this. The way this covers the fist, I don't like that. But again, as with Ultio, because they are the same exact figure, minus the head and general colors, as I've said, if you plug it in going underhand, then you can give him kind of this a little bit more normal-ish looking Wolverine claw thing, and that kind of makes it look like the claws coming off the back of his hand. It's still, for me, I'm not really interested in that because I feel like as a Batman homage, he doesn't really need claws. Maybe we try to peg this in going this way instead. That might look kind of cool. Yeah, you could do something like that if you wanted. I feel like that works a little better for Batman, like maybe it's a blunt bludgeoning thing. I don't know. Point is, you got options. And speaking of options, there is one more that I've not talked about, and that is the cape that he comes with. He comes with this wired kind of Batman-looking cape, and this thing is cheap. I'm not complaining. I appreciate the fact that they included a cloth cape with a wire running through it, which is why it's able to hold this pose. I appreciate the fact that they included that, but this is not a high-quality cape. Aside from the general cheapitude, one thing that I want to mention is the wire that runs through the edge here. It was popping out of the ends constantly when I first got this guy and was trying to put the cape on. So what I ended up doing was I folded the end around like this, so it's kind of curving up like this, and just kind of pinched it down so it's folded in. And that has been keeping the ends from pulling out and revealing the wire. Anyway, let's put this on, so I'm gonna have him look up and just move his shoulders out of the way and loop that over his head, pull it back and push his head down. And there we go. And there we've got Vexo Prominon / Batman with his cape on. And I mean, this figure looks great without it, but like with it, that completes the look, and I love this. It's completely ridiculous and absurd, but I absolutely love it. Okay, now size comparisons. Here he is with the standard deluxe squad, and he's a big boy. I mean, the cape does make him look a little bit chunkier than he actually is, but even so, he's tall. Here he is with his political counterpart, that is Ultio. And again, here you can see just how similar the figures actually are. It's just the heads that are different. From the neck down, they are the exact same figure, just painted differently. But it's really interesting how differently they handled the deco. Some things are definitely the same, like they separated out the knee spikes and stuff like that, but it's just really interesting to me how a few key paint applications in different colors can make them look so drastically different. And also you can see up here that shape that makes up the bat symbol. It is very much there on Ultio. It's the exact same molding and everything, but they painted it much differently, and that's what gets that homage across, and it's just so clever. Here he is with his other not quite mold mate, that being Aether Beta or Deadlock. And again, I really think it's cool how, like, there are definitely differences here. There's much more of a difference between these two figures than between this guy and Ultio. But they're the same skeleton. Like, the transformation scheme's almost identical. The way that certain details have ended up are very, very similar. It's like the exact same skeleton. The thighs are exactly the same. There's so much here that's just... It's so impressive to me how these look so drastically different, but they are basically the same figure. I just cannot get over that. And because I don't generally transform Mastermind Creations Spartan very much, because he's got his own kind of size comparison thing that he does every single video, instead, here is Vexo Prominon with Commodus, which is another repaint / remold. So if you're familiar with Mastermind Creations Spartan, this is basically how the size compares there. And once again, for the curious of how he stacks up with, say, Masterpiece figures, here he is with Masterpiece G2 Sideswipe. And at long last, here he is with the Duck Tank. Alright, this video's been almost an hour's worth of recording so far, and I'm sure it's going to be significantly shorter than that because I'm going to be cutting out so much transformation time for all those size comparisons. But in summation, here we have Mastermind Creations Reformatted R-46 Vexo Prominon, the TFCon 2020 exclusive. As I said, this is a fantastic repaint. The homage is extremely clever and extremely well done. And it's really impressive how they were able to get it to work with such minimal remolding. It's also a shame that this is not more readily available. This thing sold out so fast across 3 different online retailers, and that's just kind of absurd. I really hope that they do either a second run or something that makes this figure available for more people, because some people did cheat the system and bought way more copies of this thing than they really should have, which ended up cheating everyone else out of the option to get one. That's such a jerk move. As for whether or not this figure is worth it, in my mind, this was 100% no question worth getting for the regular price. That, I feel like, is an absolutely worthwhile price for this guy. It's a very, very good figure because, you know, Mastermind Creations Reformatted stuff is, generally speaking, excellent across the board. I do not think it's worth the $300-some that people are trying to charge for this thing on the aftermarket already. That's absurd. Ultimately, whether or not it's worth that money to you is up to you, but Ultio is still readily available. Mastermind Creations recently reissued their, I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the figure specifically, but their version of Drift that Aether Beta is taken from. They did a alternate version which had a slightly different color scheme. So if you want a version of this mold, whether you want it with the wings and the kind of spiky bat jet looking alt mode or more of a regular car, you've got options. You do not have to pay the absurd aftermarket prices that this figure is going for. So if you want a version of this figure, you can get it for a much more reasonable price than $300. If, however, you really want this specific figure, all I can say is good luck, and I hope you're able to find one for a reasonable price. I really do hope that they do either another run of these or have more that they were hanging on to for one reason or another that they make available to people, because, like I said, it's just not fair that so many people got cheated out of being able to get this figure because scalpers jumped on it right away. It's so ridiculous. But that is enough of that. I think I've gone on long enough. So that is going to do it for Vexo Prominon. Just Batman. What do you all think of this guy, and what do you all think with regards to Mastermind Creations and their quirky little homages and stuff that they've been doing? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all, and remember, art is more than meets the eye.